welcome to Rebel High Command Cast, an Imperial Assault podcast for 2023 and beyond. This podcast is hosted by the IACommand YouTube channel and sponsored by listeners like you through Patreon. If you want to support IA content in 2023, head over to patreon.com/IACommand and become a patron today. This is episode number 21. I am your host, TV Boy, aka Noah, and I'm joined by my co-host, the Second Flock, aka Wesley. Wesley, how you doing?
Hey, doing all right. Had a very long day yesterday, and I've got a long day today too. But it's good to record some Star Wars.
Yeah, always good to talk about Imperial Assault, right?
Yeah, always.
Alright, so the main topic of our episode today is we're going to be going over the detailed steps of an attack from step 0 all the way to after resolving an attack. So I think this will be very informative and enlightening for a lot of players. I think this is a very confusing part of the game for a lot of people. Even experienced and advanced players sometimes mess up when things happen during an attack. So this will be a good episode, I think.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out there's a big consolidation of all the rules throughout the game. That's the POTS's Consolidated Rules document. And it's got like every single term in the game and its definition. The entry for attacks is 2.5 pages long.
Yeah, and he's got a whole thread on Board Game Geek about how everything resolves during an attack, and we're actually going to be referencing that pretty heavily during this episode. So I'll put a link to that in the description in the YouTube video, and of course if you're listening on audio on your audio device, you'll see a link to the YouTube video which has everything linked in the video description. Alright, well, before we get into our main episode, I will do community updates here. And I'll actually do these live. I have the updates for you guys. So I wanted to mention that the Season 8 FAQ for IACP, that's the official changes document that lists all the new cards and has the FAQ, like rules FAQs, that will have gone up by the time you're hearing this on Monday the 15th. I just finished it and I'm kind of cleaning it up and cleaning up the notes for that. So definitely check that out if you are interested in seeing some of the rules FAQs that we're putting into the new Season 8 cards. The other thing I wanted to state is that Season 8, the Playtesting League, for anyone that still wants to join, that is open continually. So we are able to add new people. We've moved over from Challenge to a new site called Roll Better, which is a bit of a work in progress, but the person managing it is very active in making updates and is taking requests, and their site is much more robust and has much more features than Challenge does, so we're able to do a lot more with that site now, with the league, as far as adding people and changing results, manual pairings, that sort of thing. Wesley, did you have anything you wanted to include in the updates for this episode?
No.
Are you still
no,
streaming?
Yes, I do still stream over on youtube.com/the Second Flock. Didn't do any this week, just had a lot going on. But I actually had one or two people come to me and go, "Hey, you doing the stream this week? Hey, you ready for a rematch?" So we're gonna see some more on there.
Okay, so that's
sure.
Tuesdays,
We usually do
right?
Tuesdays.
Imperial Assault?
Yes.
Right, so
This
Tuesday.
coming Tuesday, however, I will probably be doing a late Lego Star Wars stream. I tried to get that up for May the 4th and spent that night fixing my computer's webcam and then fixing my entire computer when installing drivers. Kind of turned off every USB device.
That sucks, yeah. I've been kind of in a
So we'll see if I can get that up and return to a Star Wars Imperial Assault live stream the next Tuesday after that.
Okay. Alright, so let's get into our next segment. So, Comms Chatter is where we shout out a individual listener's comment on the YouTube page usually on the episodes themselves, on the podcast episodes. If you want to have your question answered or comment read on the air, just go ahead and leave a comment on the YouTube channel on the podcast videos, or send an email to iacommand01@gmail.com. This week we are going to be answering a question from Pwned, who is one of our new IACP community members. Been very active in playtesting Season 8. Love to see how many new people we've gotten for Season 8. A lot of people on Discord looking for games, playing each other. I love it. It's awesome. So Pwned left a comment on the previous episode, and I guess it's been 2 weeks since we recorded, or I guess we skipped a week, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, there's some talk about how the Rebel Care Package is often viewed as the default option in this episode, and I rarely see a scum list without Jabba. With support figures being as important as they are, is there a reason Jabba isn't taken very often by the Empire? And that would be with um, Temporary Alliance.
Yep.
So I'm bringing up Jabba now on the screen for those watching the video. Um, so yeah, I thought that was a great question. A lot of people think of bringing Jabba because he lets you draw a card for an action in Empire, which is something Empire usually lacks. He also gives you VP acceleration when you defeat figures, but there's a bit of
Mm-hmm.
a problem with Jabba, right? Which is that his
Yeah.
incentivize action, which lets you focus a figure, can only target scum figures. And the same is
Is
true for
his
order hit.
double action also that way?
Yep, order hit, which is
Yeah.
double action. Spend two VPs to have a friendly figure or any figure perform an attack, but it's really just a friendly figure. That one only targets scum figures.
Yep. So the main reason people won't bring Java is because you then really want to bring a second scum unit to get those incentivizes and order hits. But if that goes down, Java becomes a one action figure. Yeah, he draws a card for 6 points, and that's all he does.
Yeah, he does give you some extra VPs as well. Um, I would say it's
Yeah.
not completely outside the realm of playability. If you bring him with like another scum queen piece that is going to stick around for a while, like maybe Boba
Mm.
Fett,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it's I think it's plausible, and I have seen it done recently within the last few months, and the person who played it did win. I'm trying to remember what they were playing, but I might look that up right now. But you'd have to get, I don't know, how many VPs and cards drawn would you feel like you'd need to get from Jabba to for him to be worth his 6 points?
Ooh. Well, in Scum, I just take Java for granted. So I think that in Empire, I would want to at least get the two focuses, like round one, round two,
Uh huh.
um, and I'd say three card draws.
3 card draws. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so then
And
two
I normally
focuses.
don't take the VPs into account, although I think that's a failing on my part as a player.
so you would need that scum figure to last until round 3 and attack on round 3, right?
Well,
Because if
I
you
mean,
do,
if you, yeah, I guess that's true. I think what I would do though is bring Jabba in a Empire list where you're bringing a Scum 2 unit deployment card as your second choice, like the HK Assassin Droids or Super Commandos.
that's smart. Yeah. So you have multiple
So
figures
that
that
way
you
you
can
have,
focus.
yeah, you have insurance on getting that focus.
Oh, maybe so. Maybe in like an HK list with Soren or something.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Mm-hmm.
see. Okay, yeah, he has played in 3 games and he won 2 games out of the 3 in Empire. Sorry, I had to open up my old season 7 data to get that information.
I I think to clear up another conception here is that we say that Empire has issues drawing cards, but there is rule by fear, which lets you draw two at the beginning of the game. And yes, you discard one, and I used to undervalue how good this card was. But when you think about cards that give you a card per round, such as Java or R2D2, you you like go, okay, well eventually that's way more than rule by fears two at the beginning of the game. But then you stop and you start to realize over time that Imperial Assault is really a 3 round game. Sometimes it's 2 rounds and sometimes it's four. Very rarely does it go to 5 or 6. But usually you can expect a 3 round game, and Rule by Fear gives you those two cards up front, which is very valuable. Right, you're only one card behind what Java would give you throughout a typical game.
Yeah, Rule by Fear is pretty much a staple in all Empire lists. It's very rare that you see it not being taken, and it has a high win rate compared to lists that don't run it. Like you said, it's basically giving you two R2 draws up front for 1 point. You just have to discard the weakest card in your hand to use it. Let's see, I found one. So there was a Kane Somos list with Jabba and Migs Mayfeld with Jet Troopers and Captain Taro. That
I can
one.
see that.
That one against a Java. Wait, Maul? Java Maul? Is this you? No, it's Chris. Joey used that against Chris. Against the Scum Force Users list. Yeah, I might just move on here because it's gonna take me a while to go through all these Jabas to find the one that has temporary lines.
Yeah, if you want to take that, I'll also point out another part of this comment that stuck out to me is the part where he says, I rarely see a scum list without Jabba. And I think that was entirely true in the FFG days and even until recently. But I have started to see more and more where people will actually elect to not take Jabba. He's not the default for every scum list anymore. You could still see him as the default. But I've seen people take Bib and Black Market, or Black Market Prices, or Black Market, whichever one that is, the deployment card, and just have a very offense-heavy package of attackers, and just say those 4 points of support are enough for me. Or I'll see people take Afra with Bib and say that's their support. Or sometimes people will temporary lines in or use a Jabba to bring in droids and then also bring in Afra and just not need a Jabba in that list. Jabba's very good, but with the advent of IACP, there are other options. So I don't see it all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, I've only found two, which are both Joey playing it in that same list. But he won both of those games. I can't find the one that lost, so we don't know that one. But yeah, Jabba with Migs Mayfeld, Kane Somos, Captain Taro, and Jet Troopers. There you go. But yeah, that's a good point. Especially in the latest season, I've been seeing more of a trend towards like high efficiency lists with very minimal support packages. I've seen this in Rebels too. People cutting down to just C-3PO and Gideon, or even cutting them altogether to go for like maximum beef in their list. And so yeah, we don't always see Jabba, but he is very good at what he does, and that extra VP gain adds up.
Yeah.
All right. So the rules question. Oh, yeah. Let's do this first, and then we'll talk about games played. Rules question for this week's episode. This comes from Journal. I think he just asked this last night, and I answered it. I thought it was interesting. This is actually the first time, that was the first time I'd actually had to think about this. But what happens when a technician? So this is going to be relevant to Season 8. What happens when a technician plays Reverse Engineer on Tres Haknua? And I'm bringing up the card, if I can do that in the right window. what would be the value for X when using her surge abilities for Cleave X and Recover X? And as a reminder, Reverse Engineer is a 0-point command card for technicians that lets you perform an attack. During the attack, you can use the surge abilities on the defender's deployment card instead of your own. And so bring up Tress. She has Surge for Cleave X, Surge for Recover X, and she has Crate Dragon Fury, an ability that says, while attacking, X equals the number of surges rolled. So what happens? Did you see my answer to this already?
I did not.
All right, what do
But
you
my
think will
guess,
happen?
yeah, my guess is that since we don't have access to Tress's abilities when using Reverse Engineer, just her surge abilities, also that while Tress only gets X defined while she is attacking anyways, and in this case, she would not be the attacker. So even if you could access Dragon Fury, it wouldn't be while she's attacking. So my educated guess is that X is going to have to equal 0.
Yeah, that was my take as well. For all the reasons you just said, is that the attacker doesn't have Crate Dragon Fury, so they are not defining X. And even like if Tress's Crate Dragon Fury said, if it didn't have that while attacking timing, if it just said X equals number of surges rolled, I would be open to that being able to define X for somebody attacking her. But I think they were clever in doing that so that if they wanted to make X cards in the future, that didn't mess with that, that didn't interact poorly with those cards. So
Yeah.
because of that, there's nothing defining X while the technician is attacking Tress, and so, like you said, an undefined X value is pretty much 0 or null or nothing. So it just doesn't do anything if you choose those abilities. So I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah.
Might have to throw that in the FAQ now.
You know, I haven't seen anyone play Tress in a long time. But that 3-die attack looks pretty attractive.
Yeah, she's okay. The lack of ability to add damage with her surges is what hurts her, but she cleaves. She can do a lot of damage with cleave, especially with her spin kick, which effectively gives her, I think, like cleave 6.
I don't think I've ever seen her command card. Oh, okay. The attack gains Cleave 1 and Cleave 2.
Oh, so cleave 3.
Oh my gosh.
Cleave 1, cleave 2, and cleave 3, but it is just cleave 1 and cleave 2. So
Yeah, but then you can add that to her
3.
own surges.
On top of her surge for cleave X, she can. Yeah, that's how you play her. By the way, is you don't try to kill the thing you're attacking. You actually attack something else to kill the thing next to Tress. With the
I've been thinking about
so she's fun to play.
trying
I've
to
played her a
do.
couple times.
Yeah, I've been thinking about trying to do like a low-cost brawler list. She might fit in pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of brawlers, let's talk about some games we have played. I have played a lot.
I actually,
Oh, what's up?
actually threw in a second rule question here because I know we asked this the last time I played a game. We had a situation, and I think it's good to get out there. When you have a figure that can do a ranged cleave, are you able to apply the cleave to a figure that you can only see if the attack target was defeated during the attack?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So, yeah, if you're doing a ranged cleave, and this, by the way, happens for cleave with reach as well, so it doesn't come up just for ranged cleave. Go away.
True.
I'm getting an ad from AdBlock. That's ironic. Cleave. I'm just bringing it up for the YouTube video. So yeah, if you have... Oh, these guys don't have reach. Warrior guards have reach and cleave. There we go. So if you are attacking somebody and, like they said, you have cleave X, and then you defeat the target, can you then cleave onto somebody that you didn't have line of sight to until the target died? And the answer is yes, because cleave and blast both happen after the attack resolve. They are applied after the attack resolves, which means that if the target would have been defeated during the attack, they are removed as soon as they suffer damage equal to their health. They're taken off the board. And so by the time you get to the after the attack resolves timing, the defending figure will be gone if they were defeated, and you now can see your cleave target if they were hiding behind the defending figure. And so that kind of leads into our main topic later, because it's about
Yeah.
order of attack, or steps of an attack.
All right. I think that's good to have out there. And let's move on to your games. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, it was good. I hadn't seen that one since I just woke up.
You answered it.
Oh, I did? Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I answered a lot of those questions on there. So yeah, games we have played. I have been playing a ton of games, mostly because there's a lot more people of it online late at night now, and it's like when I actually have free time is from like 10 o'clock to midnight, so that's been great. I've also been playing in the league. Let's see. I played against Morgan to test out a problematic interaction with Lando and Double or Nothing. He was playing Lando, Leia, and Hero Luke, or Corset Luke, and yeah, that was a pretty interesting game. I was playing Kara and Verena and Jyn Erso and Chirrut, and he got to do the thing, which is Lando playing Double or Nothing and doing Shrewd Scoundrel on that roll to double the double. Oh my gosh, that's a big card. Lando's card is really big on Tabletop Admiral for some reason. So that quadruples the roll, right? If you double a double, that's times 4. It's exponential multiplication. So he had gotten... and he had cheat to win, but he didn't have to use it, because the way that you do it is you use resourceful to or not resourceful. When you reroll the dice, you can use Gambit. You change it to a green. You guess 2 for Shrewd Scoundrel, and then you have a 50% chance of doubling that result. And if you started off with 2 symbols on it, and you have to choose a dice that had 2 symbols already, then Double or Nothing will double it as well. We get those 2 damage pips. So I think he attacked Cardoon with 3PO next to her, with a focused Lando, no other cards, and I think he did 9 damage to her, which is a lot. And she had a block token. I stupidly
So 9 damage
left her
through
out.
the defense?
Huh?
9 damage through the defense?
Yeah. Yeah, she has 14 health. And then he attacked me with, because I thought that was the only attack I was taking, but then he played Light Bow with Chirrut, so you got another attack off Kara. And she lived. She lived through all of that. So Kara's fun. That was a really interesting game. I'll probably get it up. That'll be part of my highlights video, part 2. Because there was some fun play with Cara Dune and Feint and Parting Blow. Let's see. So yeah, we're looking at that interaction with Lando and Double or Nothing. It's a bit scary and a bit consistent. It's actually not hard to pull off. The other one I played, I just played my league game against Derek. We had kind of interesting lists against each other. I had updated my Cara Verena list to now have Echo-based troopers and Z6, so I could play heavy weapon cards and trooper cards with Cara, along with Parting Blow. And then he had brought Bosk and twin pairs of Trandoshans. And that was quite the brawl. We played on Endor Defense Station, and that game I had all my guys clumped up around my terminal, and Bosk did 2 damage to each of like 5 or 6 of my figures with indiscriminate fire. Let's see. And he killed off that same activation, he killed 3PO with Grizzly Contest after doing that 2 damage with indiscriminate fire. So, and one-shotting an Echo Base Trooper. So boss was pretty
Yeah.
good. Um, Kara did Kara things. Kara Dune. She's still super powerful if you include Call of Vanguard and Parting Blow with her. But then I had Verena kind of doing her thing. I'm not sure about Verena yet. Derek said I played her pretty well, so I'm pretty sure it's not a skill issue. But I had we had a weird interaction with close quarters where first of all, the only good attack dice pool he had in his list was Afra. Everything else was 2 dice. And then I used close quarters, and was that the one? Oh no, that wasn't the one where that happened. I was thinking of I played close quarters and got Get Behind Me, but that was in my game against Morgan, where if you use close quarters and then the other player plays Get Behind Me to change attack targets, the new target gets their defense dice, which is annoying.
The new target gets their defense
Yeah,
dice
because close
for which
quarters
card?
removes the defense dice when you use it on somebody.
Right. Oh yeah, when you get behind me.
Yeah, so if you
Yeah.
get behind me, that close quarters ability only affects the original target, and then it doesn't apply anymore to the new target. Just like if you element
Right.
and they get behind me, the new target has their defense dice still.
Right.
So that's quite the counter to that. Because close quarters is not generally worth it unless you're removing that defense die, which is something we added late in her development in season 4 when we realized that it just wasn't worth it to use close quarters to get in close. So we had to add that as an incentive.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I've been kind of on the fence. I was telling the steering committee, like, I feel like she's a 6-point figure in terms of the offensive value she brings, but her defensive buffs are still pretty good if you can position her correctly. So she's quite durable. And then finally, I had a in real life tournament. I had an actual real tournament with real people on Saturday the 6th, and you guys have seen me putting up some of the gameplay footage of that, and I think Dylan's been putting up footage too. I think he just posted last night his first video from that. That was so much fun. Oh my god, I want to play in person more. I missed playing in real tournaments with real people in the store. That was a FFG format tournament, not IACP. I did that because I was hoping it would attract some of the locals to come back that were maybe shying away from IACP that I haven't seen online. But fortunately, we had Morgan and Dylan and Kyle Bossum come down from Canada and Seattle to play. Unfortunately, the only local we had was the one I brought with me in my car. Tim joined us. He's known online as Diablo, and he is like the organizer for all the different Star Wars games. So he loves Star Wars games, and he wanted to play Imperial Assault. He hasn't played in a long time, but we were supposed to have one more, but he had a baby shower he had to go to. His baby shower. It's like,
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
guess that's kind of important. Apparently, they changed the date on that at the last minute, and then nobody else showed up, which is very frustrating because I had people online saying, "Oh, I'd be interested. I would come." So, still made it a thing thanks to the guys that came down.
Still got some games out, right?
What's that?
But you still got your games in.
Yeah, I got to play 2 rounds. What really sucked was we had 5 people, which is like super awkward. Because I wanted to play, I didn't want to sit out. So I probably should have stood out as the TO. It's usually like good manners thing to do. But I wanted to play some games against the guys who came down. So I played Double Weekways Triple Focus, which is a thing they came up with in Utah back in the day in the 2020s. And we had 2.
Triple focus?
Huh?
Triple focus?
Yeah, so Jabba, Gideon, and 3PO. And Doubt.
Okay. And out.
Uh,
Wow. Yeah. So
I
impressive.
did an I had made an alteration where they were running Greedo, so it's Onar and triple focus, double weak ways, and then they had Greedo and Black Market on a Jawa, like a regular Jawa. And I made an update to the list where I swapped out Greedo for Hera, but that means I had to upgrade a Jawa to an Elite Jawa,
Yeah.
and then cut Black Market. Some people were questioning my
Mm.
list online, and I thought it was working a lot better. I had tested the list on Vassal with Greedo, and I just felt like I really missed Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Like I was like,
Hera's like your budget bib.
I know, and I really want to modify these weak ways so they can push through Zillow technique. 'Cause otherwise, they just don't quite push through Zillow and a block token. And I was like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
could just bring Hera, and then she was so good in my game. She added like a damage, at least a damage every turn, and then sometimes added +2 damage. Sometimes when my weak ways didn't get enough surges, like if they were unfocused and unhidden. Um, yeah, so she was super good, and I'm glad I brought her instead of Greedo. I don't know, maybe you get more value out of Greedo just in terms of his actual attack, because I'm sure he deals more damage than Hera does. But Hera was great. So, and we had two Vader Palpathrons. Morgan brought one, and then Tim was asking me for a list because he didn't know how to list build. So I built a Vader. I ended up building Vader Palpthron for him, um, and he actually beat me in round two. Spoiler. Hopefully I get that up. But he had gotten the bye round one, and then round two he's like, okay, can you show me how to play this list? Because I had like given him a primer. So the primer for Vader Palpatron is you give a block token and a surge token to Vader. You activate Vader second to last. You move him up to somebody. You keep him within 10 spaces of Palpatine. Then you move Palpatine up, and you get an attack with Palpatine. And that's like that's like your formula or your flow chart for playing Vader Palpatron. Just do that, and then here's your combo: use Parting Blow and Dark Energy together, or full me, or looking for a fight. You
Looking
get
for
an extra
fight.
attack. Don't forget Unshakable before you activate Palpatine, which he almost did in the game in his round three. I was so proud though when he was like, "Oh, I was supposed to tap Unshakable before I activate when I activate Palpatine." He was like, "Can I do that?" And Kyle was so nice. He's like, "Yeah, you should do that." Kyle was very patient with me in round
Right.
three. So,
That's good.
all right, what do you got for your games?
Ooh, well, a lot less because my game was already live streamed, and I think you saw part of it. You gave me some constructive criticism on the camera angles for Tabletop
Oh
Simulator.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'll look into that for the next time I do one of those streams. So I played against Palantiri, who is a newer player. He does a lot of campaign, and he's experienced with that, but he hasn't been into the skirmish. He would talk about how he loathed Vassal,
Mm,
so he finally took a stab at it once the tabletop mod got updated. So thank you. I think it's Pwned that does that,
yep.
right? Yep. Thank you, Pwned. We got one more because of you. At least one more. And actually, I've seen Palantiri since looking for games and like people saying, "Oh, I can only do Vassal right now," and he's like,
Oh.
"Fine, I'll struggle through Vassal." So I'm glad he's starting to get into it. But he decided to go with Gar Saxon and the Super Commandos and Boba Fett. I think he had all of like two copies of the Super Commandos in the list, and he was running Afra and Bib as his support, no Jabba.
Mm.
But he's also very new to skirmish, so I think he just kind of picked what looked great and cool, and I think that was. I don't know how much of a choice that was to intentionally leave out Jabba, but it kind of worked out. So we were playing on U-Screw, and I had a list with Rebel Troopers. So I was playing CT 1701, Kotun Faralo, and also Baze Malbus. And I used Saska Teft to bring in Miggs Mayfeld. And I actually posted this list to the list builder and people to the thread, and people were like, I don't know about bringing Miggs because Kotun's ability to share power tokens doesn't like work with anyone but Rebel figures. And I was looking at Kotun and I was like, well, she still can give him power tokens, and he still like evade cancels dodges with her as long as he's in range. So that's enough of her abilities that work. But I wound up having 1 point left on the list, which is what I actually wanted some advice on, and I was just like, I don't know, suppressive fire, and I put it on CT. But the reason for that is because one, CT makes 2 attacks with barrage, and so he can get the weaken off on his first attack, and then adding an extra white dice maybe isn't so bad if you're canceling one of those evades with a weaken. And someone pointed out, oh, he's already got a surge for weaken, and I was like, well, how often is he going to get 3 surges? Because he has 3 surge abilities. And even so, it adds movement points, which I thought were vital to get Baze Malbus into the fray and make him more likely to be able to use Assault to get off 2 attacks instead of needing to move. And it kind of really worked out where there were power tokens just being added from Baze each round, and then Kotun being able to spread them out to CT and herself, Sasuke adding device tokens to people and making critical rerolls happen, while Palantiri was using the difficult and blocking terrain to great advantage, trying to hide Boba Fett when he started getting injured. I think I messed up my positioning a lot on round 1, which I'm trying to learn from. But it was also like the live stream, like I don't know where I'm gonna go. I don't know what my plan is, but I gotta keep this show moving. So it wound up just being a big fight around the center of the map, and I feel like we both could have played a little better. Him with more experience, and me with just doing better positioning round 1. But I really enjoyed the list. It came down to the wire in the end, and Sasuke was so nice. I was able to focus her and take a shot at Afra, who would run up and try to kill CT to try and secure enough victory points to win. But it took a shot at Afra, and he, of course, Palantiri rolled a dodge. I had actually used Wild Attack, so Sasuke was rolling red, green, yellow, green, because she's also focused. And I add the Wild Attack, so he gets a dodge and an evade. And I'm like, oh, is that a dodge? Well, let's double or nothing that. So he did get the block evade, which was the only side on double or nothing that actually adds anything to the dice if you are re-rolling, a dodge. But I use the device token. I think I re-roll a bad green into a red, and it rolls 3 damage. And I'm able to get across just exactly 7 and clutch the victory right there.
Nice. Oh yeah, because if you roll an evade or block, it's the same number of symbols as a dodge, so you cancel it. That's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with double or nothing, if you reroll a dodge, there's only a 1 in 3 chance that defense die does anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it really is the heightened. It really is the smuggler heightened reflexes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. I liked your suppressive fire tech there. I imagine the weekend helped. Did the weekend help at all with getting surges through with Baze?
I don't think it did in that case. Maybe one, but that one was also a cleave that we then asked that rule question about, and my position was, well, I heard this rule before, and I know that I can do it, but you're making a pretty good argument, and I don't know how to tell you that you're wrong. So we're just gonna not do the cleave this time.
I watched that game, and it was funny seeing the standees in play. And they had the colored art instead of the real art. So I actually reached out to John after I saw that, and sent him the art and some of our tokens, the token assets we have that I make, and I'm hoping he's gonna implement those as flat round tokens instead of standees.
Nice.
'Cause it was
I don't know about flat tokens, but I would rather have a standee so it's tall and I see it in 3 dimensions.
Well, because the problem was I couldn't see the standees when you're edge onto them. But I think I told him to also check out the Legion mod, because they have a bunch of those 3D models, the Super Commandos. I'm pretty sure are in Legion.
Yeah, he actually told me like, "Hey, thanks for," because we saw a few more cards that weren't in there. So I told him, and he's like, "Hey, that's great. Also, I'm gonna add some more figures this next week or whatever." I was like, "Oh, we're getting the special treatment. We're getting figures for the IACP stuff. This is great."
Yeah.
I don't think he's got something for everything, but I mean, he does have a Yoda in there, and I think he said he was gonna add a Baze and a Chirrut.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think I saw somebody post a picture of their like 3D printed base and shirt. I think it was Brendan. So that's exciting.
Sorry, Brandon had a. You said he made a Baze and Chirrut model.
Yeah, I think I saw he had posted like a picture of 3D printed base and shirt.
Nice, nice.
All right.
Yeah, he said he's working on adding some models from Legion right now. And he'll add Heroic Effort and Suppressive Fire with the next big update. And then he also found Moff Gideon was missing, so he'll slide that in.
Nice.
Hopefully before anyone else notices. Well, sorry.
You have
I guess they're going to notice
Wednesday.
now. Yep.
The 17th is when I like to put these up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, so, speaking of, if you guys are watching this, I guess when it comes out, then by that point, this upcoming Tuesday should be the next time I live stream Star Wars from that perspective. Cool.
All right.
I think we're ready for our main topic.
Get into our main topic? Yeah. So, we're going to talk about the detailed steps of performing an attack. So this is in the rules reference guide if you ever need to look this up. Here it is on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. Steps of an attack. There's 7 steps, but really there's 9 because there's step 0 before you attack, and there's step 9, which is after the attack resolves, which is often still referencing things that happen during the attack. So it's kind of not during the attack, but also you have to reference the attack itself. So we're going to talk about each of these steps, what you do in them, because it's important, because certain effects can only be used during certain steps of an attack. Even effects that say wall attacking or wall defending, there are exceptions to the rule that says that those can be used anytime during an attack. A lot of people have seen that rule that says if a card says wall attacking or wall defending, you can use this effect anytime during an attack. There are exceptions to that rule. They're in the rules reference guide, and they are related to the steps of an attack. You have to use them in the appropriate step if you want to use that effect.
Yeah, I hate that rule that it says use while attacking can be used at any time, because there are like 3 exceptions, and they're huge exceptions that apply to a lot of the effects you want to use.
Yep. And I guess I'll just cover the exceptions to the wall attacking just briefly. I think I've talked about it before in a video, but the exceptions are anything that's wall attacking or wall defending that adds or removes dice from the dice pool. That has to be used before the roll dice step. Anything that adds modifiers anything that gives you a reroll that says wall attacking or wall defending, you have to use that during the reroll step. And anything that adds symbols to the results, which is known as modifiers in the game, that has to be used during step 4. But I guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Let's talk about the steps in detail here. And by the way, I'm showing on the screen right now the BGG, the Board Game Geek thread on this. Posy has made this amazing referenced thread for pretty much every effect in the game almost that uses this attack order. So it's great to check this out. So we're going to be referencing this during the cast, but we'll be talking about it a little bit.
But I think by every effect in the game you mean FFG, because this is an older post.
Yeah, he doesn't have ICP stuff in here, but
yeah,
ICP uses a lot of these. Like, we use the standard templating from FFG cards. So there's only like a couple of cards maybe that have like a special timing, and we'll get into that when we talk about this. Okay, so performing an attack. First thing that you do is you have any effects that happen before you perform the attack. So this includes things like marksman that says before you declare, and it allows you to draw a line of sight in a special way. Drakata's arcing shot is similar. Lets you draw line of sight, or lets you target a figure in a special way. Um, Anything that says before you perform an attack will do this. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, it's all listed here. You guys can see it. Priority target. Is there anything from IACP that does that? I think just like stuff that focuses you.
Yeah, self-focusing effects.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else really. I guess technically anything that lets you perform an attack with a special action, but that's not even during the attack, so that's not part of it.
I
Yep.
mean, Maul's a good example here.
Oh, Maul.
Yep. His dual-bladed fury, he always gets focused before his attack, or he chooses cleave 2 and reach. And then there's, of course, his command card that lets him choose both.
Oh yeah, perfect. Perfect example. And that's on the original Maul too.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. And oh, I do want to mention, so it's very important for ICP Assassinate. So anything that is played before you attack does not count against Assassinate's limit.
Right, which is an ISCP limit.
Yeah, because technically, cards played before an attack resolves or after an attack resolves are not played during the attack. Attack is step 1 through 7. That's during an attack. So you can play Marksman to get a shot off through somebody and then use Assassinate in that same attack. Alright, let's move on to step 1. Alright, so now you've declared your attack. Now you have to declare a target. So this comes before rolling dice. So step 1 includes pretty much everything that says when you declare an attack, or everything that adds or removes dice from the dice pool. So first thing you do is you always do mission rolls first, and then you play effects. So what that means is you'll choose a target for the attack, and you'll add a green die to the dice pool with focus. Then you can start using other things. So things like Relentless triggers when you perform an attack targeting a figure within 3 spaces. It suffers a strain. That will happen now. Tools for the job will happen here. Wild attack. What's the one? The primary target for hunters. Element of surprise. Just going through the list here. And then always, we should mention this, you always do things when there's an attack happening. So during an attack, simultaneous cards, so cards that are played in the same window, are always played attacker first, and then the defender uses their effects.
Right, so now we're looking at attackers first, that's why you've mentioned things like element of surprise.
Yep. Exactly.
So this is also when you choose to spend power tokens, right?
Yes.
Is that before or after other abilities that let you do things when you declare?
This would be before, because it's a mission rule. Spending power tokens is a mission rule. It's not a card effect.
Alright, so same thing with focus. That applies first.
But most people will do that out of order, and as a judge, I'm totally fine if somebody is like, attack you, play tools, and I'll spend my damaged power token too. Like, I'm fine with that. You just want to do that before dice are rolled. And most people are cool with it too. Like, well, you had a power token, you would have used it, so but technically if you roll dice and then you wouldn't be able to spend your power token, because there is an information advantage to be gained there, where you're like, oh well, now I see that on my dice I don't need this power token, so I'm going to save it, or now I see I actually did need it to get the kill. So you don't want to make a habit out of doing that. You want to try and spend your power tokens before you roll dice, but most people are pretty chill about it.
Yeah. And then, but this is all before the defender gets to play any on declare effects. So this is when, after the attacker adds focus, they spend their power token. This is when you would use something like get behind me,
Yes, exactly. Um,
or on the limb.
yep. Well, in IACP, yeah, this is when you would use on the lamb. This is when you would use cards like Iron Will when attack is declared targeting you. Um, Something I want to mention is this is when Greedo, when his slow on the draw would happen, and that's an attacker ability.
Hmm.
So since this is an on declare ability from the attacker, you can actually stack this with other on declare effects in the order you want. And this is important for Greedo players because what you don't want is you don't want to attack with Greedo, use element and tools, and then get attacked by slow on the draw. Because if they kill your Greedo with the slow on the draw attack, then you have to rely on parting shot to get your attack. Well, that will be a new attack, and it will not have element and tools and whatever other cards you played on the original attack, um, because that attack is canceled basically. So what you want to do is when you attack with Greedo, you want to order it so slow on the draw happens first. Then you know if you're doing your original attack or if you're going to be doing a parting shot. Then you play tools, element, all that stuff. Primary target.
So, are you able to resolve the slow on the draw entire attack and then continue to add things
Yes.
to the original attack if you don't die?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So you'll resolve slow on the draw. The opponent attacks you. That attack. That now we get into nested attacks, right? Where we have a full attack range steps 1 through 7 happening within step 1 of another attack. You resolve all those steps. Then when you're done, you come back to the upper level of step 1 of the original Greedo attack, assuming he has not died. If he does die, you then go into another nested Inception level. You go down one further level within step 7 of that original attack, and now you're going through a third sub-level, but we'll get into that maybe later.
Yeah. Well, I think the simple version of it is when you slow on the draw with Greedo, it happens while you're declaring your original attack, and your opponent gets to shoot you back, but once they're done shooting you back, you are still in the declaring the attack step of the original attack. And whether or not you need to, parting blow or your dying shot, you're still, you get to make that choice after the opponent attacks because you're still in that first step where you can still play all these effects.
Yeah, so if you don't die, you just keep on going with the attack. You play tools, you play element, you're good. If you do die, you get a parting shot attack, then play tools and element on that attack.
So here's a Greedo question then. Would you have to spend your power token before slow on the draw happens? Because it's a mission rule?
I would think so, but I don't know. I have to check on that because I don't think people usually do it that way.
I know they save it for when they, it sounds like people do save it for picking which attack is actually going to get the power token. But it sounds like it doesn't work that way if you have to spend the power token before you can start playing things like element or slow on the draw because it's a mission rule.
Okay, in Posse's thread, he actually has power tokens under, not under mission rules, but with the rest of the effects. So maybe I was wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, he has it next to everything else, like all the other tools and everything on declare step 1.
Well, if that's where it is, then that's where it is.
Okay, well, I guess I was wrong. Oops. Learning something. So power tokens you can do any time during step 1, you don't have to do it at the very beginning. So, which is how everybody plays it. So that's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's better that you're wrong for 5 minutes than everyone having played Greedo wrong since it came out.
All right. So if you post in the comments how wrong I am about power tokens, I'll know you didn't listen to the whole episode. Okay.
That's
So
right.
good question, and we figured that out. So,
Yeah.
is there any other questions about Greedo?
I would like to move away from Greedo as fast as possible before we get too confused.
Okay. So I think we've covered it. Oh, there was another thing about on declare. And I think somebody asked this question recently. It was if I use bodyguard or get behind me to change the target of the attack, can I still play something like Iron Will that says when you're declared as a target of attack, um, you reduce the damage to 3 or whatever. You can't suffer more than 3, or anything else that says when you're declared as a target of attack. Which there are a few cards like I think Run for Cover uses that terminology, which would be played during step 1. The answer is yes, even though like there's wonkiness with the wording of that. Like, well, I wasn't the attack didn't just get declared targeting me; it was declared targeting that guy, and now it's these cards that say when you're declared as a target of attack. They are played during step 1, and they can be played before dice are rolled and on the current defender. So yes, if bodyguard or get behind me changes the target, you can then play Iron Will on the new target because the attack is targeting that figure, and we are in the declare attack step 1.
Yep. Yeah, so I think another good point here is that if you're gonna play something like Get Behind Me to change the target to someone else, the effects that the attacker played to on their character are still going to apply for this attack. The effects that you may have or have been affecting your defender originally are no longer going to apply.
Yes.
So, yeah. So the short example for that is, if I am Onar and I'm attacking and I'm focused, I spend a power token and I play Element of Surprise. My opponent uses Get Behind Me. They're switching the target to Yoda from, let's say, Luke. L Onar is still going to be focused with the power token, but the element of surprise was being played on Luke, the original target. And when Yoda plays Get Behind Me, runs up and comes in to take the shot, Yoda has not been affected by element of surprise. So as the new target, he's still going to roll his defense die.
Yep. Exactly. One more thing to cover about step 1 is that if you gain a focus during step 1 instead of during step 0, normally you would miss it, but apparently it's been ruled by somebody at FFG that if you gain a focus during step 1, you still add the green dice to your attack pool. I think the only thing that does this is primary target, because it's on
Okay.
declare, but it gives you a focus. So
Mm,
you would think that technically this would not even function, right? So that they had to make that rule just for this card to actually do what you think it would do, which is add a green dice to the attack pool.
yeah, makes sense.
All right. So that's on declare. So that's step 1. Uh, Next, we are going to go into step 2, which is roll dice. So once you've done all your on declare effects, you've added dice or removed dice from the dice pool, you've done all that. Now it's time to roll dice. And the first thing you do is you roll the dice. You don't do anything else before rolling the dice. That's what you do. And
Um,
then, let's
well,
see.
is this where the new card Supercharge comes in?
Yes. So let's see. So anything. So there's things that would happen before rolling. So yeah, I guess I'm wrong. I gotta think before I talk. I'm too tired. Yes, so Supercharge is a new card that would happen during this step before dice are rolled. So this one says this is a special action, so you actually play it even before step 0 to perform an attack. And it says before rolling dice, you add yellow dice to the dice pool until there are 4 attack dice total. So anytime you see the words before, before something happens, that means immediately before in Imperial Assault, even if it doesn't say interrupt. So immediately before you roll your dice, you would add yellow dice. So this does happen. That part does happen during step 2. Interestingly, they have wildfire happening during step 2. We had changed that so it's on declare just because it was confusing people. Oh, interestingly, flyby happens during step 2. That's the jet troopers.
Yep. So I think effects that happen while attacking, but that add dice or change dice in the dice pool have to be done just before the dice are rolled.
Yeah, that's interesting that he has flyby there because it says when you declare an attack. So I would have thought that would happen during step 1.
Huh. That is weird. And then so is wildfire, which is also when you declare an attack.
Yeah. Front line. Oh, okay, so that's interesting. So anything that would change your dice. So he has front line here. So the echo based troopers. They change what dice you roll. So while attacking, if the target's within 2 spaces, you replace one blue die in your attack pool with one red die and apply +2. So yeah, anything that changes the color of your dice before you roll. So like frontline is one. Actually, IG88, his what is it called? Arsenal ability, and General Weiss's Epic Arsenal. They have the question mark dice in the dice pool. People used to ask, "What does that? How does that work?" And the FAQ says that you basically choose which dice to roll as you roll them. So this actually, the Arsenal ability actually happens.
You're
It will
cutting out
affect
for
it
me.
in step 2. It doesn't always apply in step 2. Like if something references IG88's dice pool, like if you use Varina on IG88, you basically the arsenal, the person who controls the arsenal figure will choose the dice as soon as the dice color matters. So as soon as you go to roll dice, that's when the IG88 player decides what color those dice will be. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that changes dice's color before you roll it.
You said flyby, you said the echo based troopers, and you said the arsenal. Callus?
Oh, Callus is interesting. Let's see.
This is actually before you declare an attack. Oh,
Yeah, so that's
yes.
before you declare.
Yeah.
So that's step 0.
Yeah.
And that's
Um.
important because that affects who you can target with the attack.
Oh,
But
whoops.
yeah, it does. You're right. It says replace one blue die with one red die. So that would happen during step 2. You would replace the blue with the red.
How is element of surprise and wildfire different steps of the attack?
They really shouldn't be. I think the reason he has it there is because wildfire is undefined. This is CT's card, so I'm going to pull up the original. It just says use while attacking. Problem is the rules reference guide doesn't actually explicitly say when you
Oh,
would play a card that removes dice from the dice pool. It only has an exception for cards that add dice to the dice pool. So this card
what?
is undefined in the rules, like when you're supposed to actually use it. That's why it's so confusing to people, and people always use it after the dice are rolled to remove results, like it's a super heightened reflexes. But you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do it before dice are rolled to just remove the results, sight unseen.
So is the only reason there's an IACP version of wildfire to make it more clear?
Yes.
Oh.
So
Oh,
we
it's an
just went ahead and
errata.
said this is
Okay.
confusing too many people. This was after CT came out as IACP, so a lot of
Yeah.
people were using this card, and a lot of people were using this card wrong. We just kept seeing people over and over using this card wrong, and we were like, I think this came out in a between season 6 and season 7 period, so we'd already approved season 6, and we
Mm.
needed to do an update to it, and we just said, let's just put this on Vassal. Let's get this version out there so that when people are playing it, the default is to play this one that says on declare, because that's when you're
Yeah,
supposed to use it.
That's what threw me off. I was looking at the ISCP version without realizing.
Yep. So that's why we errated that. We just said this is like one of the few ones where we said FFG screwed this up. We're gonna make this clear for people.
Yeah.
So yeah, not much happens during step 2 other than that. Okay.
Then you roll dice.
You rolled your dice, and now we go into step 3, which is rerolls. So anything that has you re-rolling a dice, and of course you go attacker first, then defender, is going to use this step. So officer's training, targeting computer, professional, foresight on Vader. That's all during step 3. Let's see. Oh, interestingly, anything that gives you hidden should be used during this step. Apparently, because when do you check accuracy? Oh, because if you're not hidden before the next step, you won't get to add the effect. So anything that would give you hidden, so like there's a card, I think it's like camouflage. Nobody plays it, but it's just important to mention. No, that's when attack declared targeting you, so that would not be it. Oh, here, Force Illusion. I think this is the only one it matters for. If you ever play Force Illusion for some reason, I don't know why you would use that, but anytime you'd have an effect that says use while defending or while someone is attacking, you become hidden. You want to use it during the reroll step. And then anything that looks like a reroll but isn't, like Ezra. So Ezra's much to learn ability. This is
Force Illusion really that bad?
2 points to become hidden.
It could make an attack miss.
I mean, yeah, but you can just play camouflage for 1 point. I mean, yeah, you get to see what the accuracy looks like with.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, that's better. I didn't know that card existed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the trick with what is that called? With Force Illusion is you get to see the dice roll and then possibly force it to miss if they are or if they are 1 accuracy over. But yeah, it's just usually not. It's usually very niche. And you can't fit this in list. But anyway, that's not part of the conversation. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Ezra. So Ezra has his much to learn ability. That is usually a reroll, but there's a condition on it that says if you have a force user within 3 spaces, you can change that attack die to any side instead. So that happens during the reroll step, even if you're not technically rerolling that dice. I think Yoda has a similar card from IACP. But that can happen. Oh, that happens as soon as they roll dice. That's why we did that. So Yoda would actually, Yoda's card actually happens during step 2. It says use when a friendly rebel force user within 4 spaces rolls any number of dice. So that would actually be played during step 2. The other one that is in IACP that happens during step 3 is rapid recalibration. This is kind of a weird one, and I'm not sure if we're going to keep this wording on it. I don't like this wording even though I came up with it. This is used while attacking before the defender performs rerolls. So technically you have to play this during step 3 rerolls during the attacker's reroll step. Choose 1 attack die and turn that die to any side. I think because we wanted it to be... Someone's texting me. Oh, since we wanted it to be part of the reroll step like the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So this technically happens during rerolls.
Whose card is that?
Rapid recalibration.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one. I think I might try to errata this soon. Be a little less confusing, because I think a lot of people think this is like you can only use this when the opponent rerolls a dice. I've seen that confusion happen before. So.
Oh, no, it seems pretty clear to me. It's after all of your other reroll effects and before your opponent's rerolls.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. But I think that's it for rerolls, unless there's anything else.
Um, yeah, I think a good point here is that it doesn't matter whose dice are being rerolled by the effect. It's the attacker's effects go first, and then the defender's effects. So, if your opponent is attacking you with an HK Assassin Droid and they're going to use versatile weaponry to force you to reroll your defense die, that still happens. That's an attacker ability. So it doesn't matter that it's your dice being rerolled. The attacker gets to do that before you have a chance to reroll anything.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. Oh, I think there's a couple other things I want to mention. Tough Luck is played during this step.
Mm-hmm.
So that one is when a dice is rerolled, you can play Tough Luck to cancel that. That happens immediately after the reroll, so that's during the reroll step. And Tough Luck works even if you're the one that forced your opponent to reroll. Technically, they still rerolled it. That's why they worded that. That's why they worded forced rerolls that way. And then the other thing I need to mention is conversion effects. So I used to think these happened during the modifier step, but I've recently learned that they actually happen. Not recently, like a year ago. Learned that they actually happen during the reroll step when they happen. So my example here is Wookiee Avenger. If you if you reroll one of Chewbacca's dice with like a defensive reroll, if you get a dodge on the reroll, it'll instantly convert into a what do you call it? An evade. So that happens like instantaneously. Same thing for Kanan. He also converts results, and he actually converts results during the reroll step with Soresu form. Reroll. If it does reroll, you convert each dodge result to 2 blocks and 1 evade. So that again happens during step 3. That does not happen during the modifier step, which is the next step, step 4.
Yeah. Apply modifiers. This is where all the crazy stuff happens.
Yeah, this is where the fun stuff happens. So anything that adds symbols to the dice results is going to happen here. And this is where I know for sure that conditions apply first as a mission rule, and then effects apply after that. So before you can apply any modifiers, you have to apply the modifiers from hidden, so -2 accuracy to the attack results, and weakened, so -1 surge to the attacker, or if the defender's weakened, it's -1 evade. So those are applied first, and then you start applying all other modifiers.
And if you're not playing IACP, this is apparently your last chance to play On the Lam.
Yeah, that was interesting playing in the tournament we played in without IACP cards. That was a lot more relevant than I really thought it would be when you start adding in things like doubt rerolls and rerolls in general, and like defensive stuff. Like being able to be like, oh, I see the dice, and I know that if I use Get Down with Onar here and reroll Tough Luck their attack dice, I don't have to use my On the Lam. I'll just survive this attack. So, yeah, in ICP Lam, you can't see the dice. You have to play Lam during the step 1 to clear attackers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Lamb has its own like weird um, timing window in FFG. Like the official card on the Lamb, it's got its own timing window, which is really weird.
Yeah. So, and what I mean to clarify that is it's in the apply modifier step, and after you technically apply the conditions, weaken and hidden.
Mm-hmm.
But that is your last chance to play on the Lamb. It's apparently before the opponent does any like add effects, add modifier
Yep.
effects.
Because the card says use while defending before the attacker applies modifiers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
All right.
But
So anything that is adding a modifier. This includes innate modifiers. So if your deployment card says +1 damage on it, or like Bosk says +2 damage, this is the step that you apply that. Same thing for if it has +1 block. So Bosk again. Stuff like Hera, called shots. You would use that during step 4. Assassinate, positioning advantage. Heightened reflexes is used during step 4 because it is removing results. So this is a modifier, so you'd play stuff like heightened reflexes during step 4. I'm trying to think what else is different.
I mean, any innate blocks or evades someone has.
Zillow technique, the discard to add a block, that's during step 4 after the attacker applies their modifiers.
Mm-hmm.
Deadly precision. Oh, that's interesting. So the deadly precision card, this one says use at the start of your activation, but the actual effect will apply during step 4 of the attack. Oh, one more that I didn't mention. I should go back and mention. For step 2, Lucky actually applies during step 2. I believe. Oh no, wait. When does Lucky apply? I have to go look that up.
That is defender and friendly to defender under apply modifiers. And I think the difference with Lucky is that it adds a dodge result, and it does not convert the result.
Oh, there we go.
So converting results is what Kanan does, like with a reroll, which is step 3. R2-D2's Lucky, if you roll the blank, he's going to add a dodge, but he's going to do that during the add modifier step. So it's adding.
So actually, that's not what it is, because there are effects that add results that don't happen during step 4. So like Death Blow. Like Death Blow is played during step 1, and it applies the extra results immediately, and they just sit there and wait for the rest of the attack to finish. The reason that, and I actually know this, the reason that R2-D2 is Lucky applies in step 4 is because it's a wall defending effect.
Yeah, and then Death Blow applies in step 1 because it's a use while you declare.
Yeah.
Use when you declare.
That's the tricky part about these, is figuring out which modifiers happen during step 4 and which ones actually happen in a different step. Tough luck would be, you would think tough luck would be a modifier because it's canceling results, but the timing is when they re-roll a die. So anytime you have a modifier that either doesn't have a timing, like again the +1 block or +2 damage on Bosk, or it says wall defending or wall attacking, and it's adding or removing results, those are played during step 4.
Yep. There's some simple vocab you can use to kind of guesstimate when a lot of these things happen. So if something says when you declare, that's usually step 1.
Yep.
If something says you can reroll, it's usually during the reroll step. And if something says while attacking or while defending, it's typically going to be step 4.
Yeah. While attacking, while defending, and it's changing the dice results.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like, brace for impact says wall defending. And that adds a dice.
You're right. Yeah, so that has to happen before the dice. Before the rolls.
Yep. Okay, so step 4 we've kind of established is modifiers. So once all the modifiers are added or subtracted, once you're done, adding your damage result, adding your evade result, then you move to step 5, which is spending your surges. So, and this is important because I see what a lot of people do is they're like, okay, well, what are you going to spend your surges on? And then they tell you, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to add an evade now. You can't do that. So if your opponent has told you what they're going to spend their surges on, you're either moved past the modifier step, or you need to give them a chance to change their decision.
Yeah.
So this step is you see how many surges you've gotten through that have not been canceled by something like weakened or an evade, and then you can be like, okay, so now I have 1 surge left over after all that. I'm going to spend it on this ability from your deployment card. Or if you have a surge ability from a command card, like Covering Fire does that.
Yeah. Although Covering Fire would already be in play.
Right, but I just mean, like, I didn't want to say it's just surge abilities from deployment cards. Like, if you've gotten a surge ability added, let's see. I think
now,
Hunter Protocol. I'm trying to think when that one would happen. This one says use while attacking. You may trigger the same surge ability up to twice. So yeah, I think this one happens during spent surges. Let's see if it's on. Oh yeah, there it is. Hunter Protocol CC. What does advanced firepower do?
I mean, this is the step where if you have any abilities that spend a surge to do them, this is it. Like Devith and the Grand Inquisitor have things like that. So Grand Inquisitor has Deadly. It's a surge to apply -1 dodge to the defense results. In IACP, that was upgraded to Deadly Spin, where it also applies Cleave 3. But that just happens at the spend surges step, and you can tell because the deployment card has a surge on it before the ability.
Yeah, and I will mention here that anything that you spend surges on will happen immediately, with the exception of Blast, Cleave, and Condition keywords. So, for example, you just talked about the Grand Inquisitor. When you spend your surge on Deadly Spin, it will immediately apply that -1 dodge to the results. Even though that's a modifier, that is a surge ability, so that happens during step 5. And then, after the attack resolves, you would resolve the Cleave 3, because that is just a special rule for Cleave and Blast.
And ability keywords.
And condition keywords. Yes.
Yeah, condition keywords.
So focus, hide, bleed,
weaken, stun.
and stun. Yep.
Yep.
But anything else like gain a power token, so like Cassian, that happens immediately.
With the conditions and with Cleave and with Blast, there is a condition that for any of those to work, the attack has to actually deal damage.
Yep.
And so for me, that's a good way to remember that it happens after the attack, is that we have to finish the attack to see what happened, to see if any of these effects I'm doing are going to work.
Exactly.
But of course, now is where you declare them, if they're surge abilities.
Yes. Most importantly, recover, going back to Ezra, that will happen immediately during step 5. You'll actually remove the damage during step 5 when you spend that surge. And then one other thing, Oh yeah, I was gonna mention Soren. So Soren and recently, what's his name? Gar Saxon. This card is too large. Here's the old Soren. Advanced firepower on Soren. Adjacent friendly droids and vehicles can use your surge abilities. You would do this during step 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we've spent our surges, we've used our surge abilities, which, also add modifiers, but now we go to step 6, which is check accuracy. I actually always forget about this step. This is only for ranged attacks. You don't do this for melee, even if it's reach. Reach does not use accuracy. It's just within 2 spaces. If you roll 3 red dice and you have reach, you're fine. You don't need accuracy. Um, so, oh, that's funny. So this is where Zillow technique happens.
That's weird.
Yeah, and I've known this.
I would say that,
but
yeah. Well, Zillow Technique Part 2. This is your last chance to use Zillow Technique to affect Pierce. I think I don't know if you have the form up, but the check accuracy step is pretty short. Basically, if not enough accuracy, attack miss.
yeah,
Apparently, the defender can use heavy armor.
yes, because heavy armor is just like Zillow technique. It reduces the Pierce value. And I remember when this came up way back in the day, people were really confused. Like, when can I actually use Zillow technique and heavy armor? Because they change how Pierce works, but that's not a modifier. Heavy armor says use while defending. During this attack, the Pierce keyword has no effect. So yeah, the ruling was basically you can use these as late as you want before damage is dealt. So that's why these are in step 6, because the next step is when we actually deal damage.
Yeah. It doesn't have anything to do with accuracy, but this is your chance to reduce any Pierce results because it's just before Pierce gets applied.
Yep, and this is why I hate Zillow technique, because you can exhaust it to change the Pierce after the opponent has spent surges. So it's a huge information advantage for the Zillow technique player. Because if they don't spend surges on Pierce, well, then you don't have to exhaust your Zillow technique, and you have it for their next attack.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the times where that matters, it's the attacker choosing whether they want to exhaust, like try to get you to exhaust Zillow for another attack later in the round. But if they have other, if they have other surges that they're choosing between, it's probably better to just choose one that's not Pierce.
Yes, so oftentimes you will see players choosing their surge for +1 damage instead of the surge for Pierce 2 because they're trying to avoid Zillow technique, but then that gives the Zillow player the advantage on the next attack, right? Because then they're stuck in the same problem. So unless you spring the trap, you're stuck with that hanging over your head if you're playing a list that has a lot of surge for Pierce 2, which I like to play Sabs, as people know, so I find it very annoying.
Of course, I will add, though, you have to use the first half of Zillow during the add modifier step. That's before your opponent spends the surges.
Yes, and that does confuse people too. There's 2 effects on Zillow, right? There's the wall and they're out of order, which is also annoying. The exhaust to reduce the Pierce is the first ability. And then the second ability is, while friendly figure is defending, you may discard 1 command card to apply +1 block to the defense results. I just noticed just limit once per attack. So I guess we did need to put that on Bib Fortuna. So that discard to add a block, that happens during step 4 after the opponent applies their modifiers, which again is another information advantage, because you know what surges they have to spend, right? So it's not like that's hidden. So the Zillow player gets to see what positioning advantage or whatever cards get played on the attack before they have to commit to pitching a command card. And then once again, the exhaust part happens during step 6 after surges have already been spent.
Yep. But I was going to say, you can have a situation where you will know how many surges your opponent has before you have to pitch with Zillow, but you don't know for the +1 block, but you don't know what surges they're going to use yet. So if you have a situation where maybe they have one surge and they got to choose between a +2 damage and a Pierce 3, it's kind of like and maybe you're going to die if you don't pitch the card and they pick the +2, so you got to pitch. But then they go, okay, well, I may as well do the Pierce 3 surge. But now you also have to tap Zillow to stay alive. So you can kind of... There's a little back and forth with how much you can be forced to use out of Zillow to survive.
Yeah, I'd say that's about as much as you can do as the attacker, is you can compromise your attack to force them to exhaust Zillow. But you're never coming out on top in that interaction because they know already what surges you have access to, and they can predict what you're going to do with those surges before they pitch a card to Zillow.
Yeah. As the Zillow player, you basically have to like look at all their surges and predict all that and know what their options are. And then you decide whether to block or not, then you let the opponent do their surges, and then you Zillow Pierce if you need to.
There's so many fun ways I would nerf Zillow if I could. But that card is untouchable. So instead it's carta non grata to me.
I mean, yeah, if you guys nerfed Zillow, you'd have to buff a lot of health values.
Just take Empire down a peg. Alright, so that was step 6. So we're now in the final official step, which is step 7. Calculate and apply damage. So this is where we get into... So the mission rules here are, if the attack misses, the target suffers 0 damage in this step. So you just skip the rest of it. So the attack will miss if there is not sufficient accuracy for a ranged attack, right? Or if there is an uncancelled dodge in the defense results.
Mm-hmm.
So in those cases, 0 damage will be dealt. And then interestingly, the Pierce is resolved during this step. And that makes sense, because the next step is going to be comparing results. So if you have any Pierce and it's not been cancelled by Zillow or something, this is the point. Before anything else happens in step 7, you will remove block results from the defense results equal to the Pierce value.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever wondered how Pierce actually works within the rules, there you go. And then finally, we are comparing, where is it? Is it after? It doesn't say here, but what you do during step 7 is you're basically comparing the number of hits in the attack results, and then subtract from that the number of blocks, and then the net result you deal in damage to the defender. So step 7 is where damage actually happens. This is going to be the step where stuff that triggers off of damage happening will happen. So we talked about Greedo. We're going to talk about him again, just because I think it's funny. Parting Shot will trigger here in step 7 when he suffers damage equal to his health. Dying Lunge is another one that happens in this step. Extra Protection, Onar's card. That's going to happen in step 7. And the new card for Baze, Final Stand, happens in step 7.
Wait a minute. You can add Pierce with things like Jax after Zillow? I'm looking at
Jax?
supporting fire.
Where are you looking at? What is that called?
It's called supporting fire. It's Jax's ability, and it's like late in step 7 on the list of attacker and friendly to attacker effects.
Other trigger is attacking and furious to apply Pierce 1 to the attack results. I don't think that's correct. Right? Because it's too late. It says Pierce is resolved during this step. You'd have to... I guess that's when you count the Pierce one from Jax.
I guess it's when you count it.
So I think anything that applies
Oh.
Pierce,
Yeah.
because Pierce is not a modifier, so I think that kind of makes sense. So what he's saying is, you're not using the ability, so to speak. You're, as a part of
Counting
Pierce
it.
being resolved, you would be like, oh, and also there's Pierce 1 from Jax, so I'm resolving that. Right? Because you don't actually... So I think the reason it works like that is, let's say you're attacking somebody that's next to Jax, and then if you applied Pierce during step 4, there's an opportunity where maybe Jax gets defeated or takes damage from something, or something happens and Jax is no longer adjacent to the target. Then it's like, oh, well, are you still getting the Pierce 1? Well, if you applied it in step 4, then it would be weird, right? Because it would be getting Pierce without Jax there. So I think that's why any Pierce that gets added would be during step 7, which is kind of weird, because if you ever made a card that was like, use while attacking to apply Pierce 2 to the attack results, you would play it here? I don't know. I guess that's why that card doesn't exist. That's why Exposed Weakness works the way it does. So Exposed Weakness would happen here then, even though you play it during your activation.
This is when it gets counted.
The Pierce 3 would be counted here in step 7.
But I think the key here is that the opponent has full knowledge of what Pierce is gonna happen and get calculated here.
And I can see why it happens here, where you don't remove blocks until this step, because otherwise Zillow would happen too late, right? If you like, okay, well, I already moved the blocks, but you're reducing my Pierce, so now I get the blocks back. So I think they're trying to account for abilities like Zillow Technique that can alter the Pierce value. So that should happen before step 7, and then Pierce is actually removing the blocks at the very last possible moment in step 7.
Interestingly, that you can also use Tress's card to add cleave during this step.
So that is because, I know why. Tress's card is the one that we just talked about earlier, which is use while attacking to apply cleave whatever to the attack results.
Yeah, cleave 1 and cleave 2.
The reason is that you can play this card whenever you want. This is just your last chance to play it, because this is the final step of the attack. So if you don't play it now, you lose your opportunity to play it, because you'll no longer be while attacking. But you can play this during like step 1 if you wanted to. You can play this at any
So
time.
is the target figure defeated during this step and removed from the board?
Yes. So once you resolve all these other effects, you compare the damage and the blocks, and then you deal damage to the target, and then they are defeated.
Okay.
That actually happens first, I believe. So this is when you would play Celebration. And I do want to mention this because Celebration is played during the attack. So when the figure is defeated, you're still resolving an attack, even though they're dead and gone. There's still this moment right at the end during step 7 where you're still resolving an attack, the defender is gone and removed from the board, but you're in this while attacking step. And this is important for IACP because of Assassinate. So you cannot play Celebration if you have used Assassinate in the same attack, because you're still in the wall. You're still during an attack.
So
yeah. Go ahead.
attacker effects happen first, right?
Yes, you
and
still
then
do attacker
if
effects
we're-
first.
So if we're in the calculate and apply damage step, then if your opponent has a before this figure is defeated effect,
Attacker steps.
Is that-
So attacker defender is only relevant when you have the same timing window.
yeah, okay.
So, like, for example, the only example I can think of would be like spinning kick, and I don't know, it's one of these things, wall defending. I don't think there's anything that's really like wall defending that would happen here.
Yeah.
But those would be two.
I guess it all makes sense.
Huh.
So it's like you deal with the pierce, and then you finally calculate the damage, then you apply the damage, and then I guess so. Opportunistic is before this figure is defeated.
Opportunistic. No. Opportunistic doesn't have that clause on it. Does it say that?
It says use after a. Oh, I'm moving on to like just steps of the calculate and apply damage step.
Yeah. So
Because I get what you're saying.
that is when the figure suffers damage. When a figure suffers damage equal to its health, it is instantly removed from the field, from the table. And then you would do any, like, when a figure suffers damage effects, unless that effect says before the figure is defeated.
So opportunistic would be played after a figure is defeated.
Yes.
So this would opportunistic would be after a celebration.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm thinking there's an interaction to a celebration and heroic effort. That's kind of weird. Let's see. One of your unique figures is defeated. So if you are the attacker and your figure gets defeated for some reason, you would get to heroic effort before celebration can be played, and you could possibly draw into negation. So that's something to keep in mind. I've had that come up actually.
Wait, you said heroic effort happens before celebration?
If you're the attacker and you get defeated.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense how it's weird. Alright.
Let's see. So like dying lunge would happen during this time, but it's before the figure becomes defeated for obvious reasons. But yeah, like I said, you cannot assassinate and play celebration during the same attack, because celebration happens during the attack. It says Havoc Shot. Let's see. I think that's for campaign though. Okay, so that's after your resolve attack, so we'll get to that. So yeah, this is your last chance to add cleave. Just checking any of these cards to see if they matter to us. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, so that is the final step. So once you do that, oh, I'm just looking at the. Oh yeah, so Miracle Worker is the other one that would happen during Step 7. Oh, Debts Repaid, that one is during Step 7 if they're defeated during the attack. This one's important because ISB Infiltrators. So that's something to keep in mind, is ISB Infiltrators stop all command cards from being played by the opponent. Oh, that's during their activation, so I guess that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's even more encompassing.
What was I thinking of? Oh,
what about K2SO?
I know what it was. It was K2SO.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was an example I was thinking of with Chewie where, he got lured by the dark side, and so he became a hostile figure, and then he couldn't play Debts Repaid when he killed his own friend, and that was really annoying to me, but also kind of thematic, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. He can't play Debts Repaid because he was... Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Because he's a hostile figure while he's being controlled by the opponent. So you, as the player that originally controlled him, cannot play command cards with him because he's not friendly to you during that period of time. But that's a completely different. That has nothing to do with the steps of an attack. That's more to do with like how command cards work. So your player and your opponent cannot spend power tokens or play command cards.
Can you play Celebration if you defeat K2SO?
While defending your player, no, you cannot. You cannot celebrate K2SO's
But he's
death.
But he's already dead.
Oh, that's a good point. So you can. Yeah, you can. That's right. Yeah, so he's removed from the table. His abilities are no longer active when Celebration will be played. So yes, you can play Celebration. Sorry, I got a little excited
Nice. No, that's fine. That's fine.
there.
Huh.
Good question.
Oh, that's only while defending. Cool. I mean, it kind of sucks, but cool.
K2SO?
Just that you can't play cards when he's defending.
Oh yeah. Which normally you don't, right? So it's actually a pretty powerful defensive ability.
Yeah, but I do see a lot of, deflection Jedis and get behind me's, and there's some defense cards.
Although if you
Elusive. He can't play elusive. That's what I was thinking of recently.
Oh, he can't. That's true.
He can't play elusive or parry.
Yep. Or get Miracle Worker played on him. That was the main part of that design.
Ah.
That's why you gotta play his command card. Blend in.
Yes. And then you also play Mara, so Mara is blending in and then runs up and hits like a truck.
Yeah, I need to play that list. Invisible Mara with blend in and vanish.
So good. Yep. Playing with David too.
Alright. Back to the
I'm cooking up a list like that. Too.
That'll be fun. Okay. So now we go into the after the attack resolves step. So this is like kind of an unofficial step 8. I guess I said step 9 because step 0, but yeah, 8. So technically the attack is no longer happening. So there's no wall attacking stuff during after resolves. But the rules are that when you're resolving timing conflicts with like simultaneous effects, you use the attacker first, defender second order. You don't switch back to initiative, because normally when you're not attacking, if there's a conflict with timing of abilities, it's the player with initiative resolves their abilities first, and then the player without initiative resolves their abilities last. But during this wall attack, after the attack resolve step, you are actually resolving it in order of attacker and defender player. So kind of weird, but that's in the official FFG FAQ.
Nice.
It says recover happens here, but I'm pretty sure that's not correct. It says recover damage keyword. So I wonder if that's referring to something for campaign. Let's see, because like Luke Skywalker has search for recover 2. Huh. So maybe we got that wrong. I'd have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure recover doesn't work like that. But I do know for a fact that blast and cleave and condition keywords happen here. And that's important for, again, we've talked about what happens with ranged cleave or reach cleave and the target being defeated, so that can open up line of sight to a target for cleave that you didn't previously have when you first started attacking. Blast specifically triggers off the target space, so even if the figure was defeated, you blast off of the target space instead of the target figure. And then stun, applying after the attack resolves. This is important for things like parting shot or dying lunge, right? If you surge to apply a stun keyword and then you defeat the target, they will not be stunned before they get their parting shot or dying lunge. But
wait, that sounded important. I was reading recover.
yeah, I have not seen any rule about recover happening after the attack resolves, so I'll have to check with Pazzi.
So, yeah, I am looking at his guide, and it does say for recover, some cards use the recover as a keyword. For example, surge to recover 1 allows the figure to spend a surge to recover 1 after resolving the attack.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that in the official.
And then it says the figure can recover this damage even if the target of the attack did not suffer any damage.
Okay, well.
And they mention it in a few places about recover working even if they didn't suffer damage, so that seems like indicative or just kind of alluding to the idea that it does happen after the attack, because it's like, for it to not matter if the attacker suffer or the defender suffer damage means that it's already happened, that the defender either did or didn't suffer damage.
But that's really important for things like parting shot and dying lunge, right? If you're the attacker and you kill the defender and they get to use dying lunge or parting shot, the timing of when you recover that damage is really important.
Wow, yeah.
So I was not aware.
If you need to look that up, go ahead. But this sounds like a buff to brawlers. Let's go.
Yeah, or in Greedo. But yeah, I was not aware of this. I thought you recovered immediately. So I'll have to look into that, and then maybe I'll post a comment on the...
It does say when you surge to recover one strain during campaign, you recover immediately.
That's so weird.
That's different. Yeah, and it's not really a surge ability, it's a mission roll, although it's effectively a global surge ability to the rebels in campaign.
Okay, well, we'll look into that.
Yeah.
Let's see. So everything else is... Oh, so then we were talking about stun. So I was saying that if you spend a surge to apply stun to the attack, the stun keyword, it will not happen before dying lunge or parting shot. So that won't interrupt their parting shot. But it will stop like return fire effects, like Han Solo and Migs Mayfeld, because the attackers will apply their effects before the defender. So you apply the stun first from the attacker, and then the defender would get to do a return fire, but they would be stunned at that point, so they wouldn't be able to declare an attack. Let's see. It says opportunist happens here, but that one I'm not sure why.
Opportunist?
I have seen opportunist as happening during step 7. And I think I saw it in step 7 too. Yeah. Oh, opportunist is not opportunistic. That's something else, sorry.
No, it's a different... I think that's a campaign ability.
Okay, I got confused.
Yeah, I get you.
Brutal cleave.
This is when you suppress a fire?
Suppressive fire is after the attack resolves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So suppressive fire can actually mess with... I guess it can't mess with return fire because it's moving somebody that wasn't attacking. Oh, but you can mess with the return fire if you block line of sight to the attacker.
Well, you can also just weaken the attacker and they have a nerfed shot.
Yep, that too, but like you can completely you can completely stop the return fire.
Yeah. True that.
Hit and run. I don't think that's on here, but the movement from hit and run, that actually happens immediately after the attack resolves, and you have to spend it all. So normally if you gained a movement point, so like jet troopers, right? They have an ability that says flyby. After the attack resolves, you gain 2 movement points. The 2 movement points you get from that cannot be used to like interrupt other abilities. It just goes into your movement point bank, and then you can spend it once all other abilities have finished resolving. So you can't like fly by to run away from a return fire if that jet trooper is currently activating. Although you could do that if they were getting attacked from out of activation from like Emperor Palpatine. But hit and run, if I can pull it up, it says perform an attack. After the attack resolves, you gain 3 movement points. So why is this different? Because it's a special action. And there's a rule in the rules reference guide that says movement points gained from a special action must be spent immediately or they are lost. So because of that rule, you actually get to move 3. You can move 3 spaces, or spend 3 movement points like immediately before the defender gets to resolve any after the attack resolves abilities.
Yeah.
which includes return fire.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for something to dodge return fires, this is another way to do it. Let's see.
Or to just add a flamethrower to your attack with Boba Fett.
You can do that, and you can do it before that would resolve, actually.
Yeah.
You can also do that. You can do that with the new Super Commandos, too. You can do it, fire off a rocket as an after attack resolves ability. Because you're
and a block token.
Points. And who?
And a block token. Make that return fire less effective.
You can't do the block token because the block token ability is a during your activation ability. And so any ability that says you can only use it during your activation, you cannot use that while an action is resolving. And so hit and run, you're technically still resolving the special action.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Isn't that weird? The whole attack plus the gain 3 movement points, that's all part of an action. That's counted as resolving an action.
Yeah, and then during your activation is like when you could just do any action. Like when you're, there's no active game state effect happening.
Yeah, it's kind of like the equivalent in Magic of like sorcery speed while the stack is empty during your turn. It's like you can't have any other things going on to use a during your activation ability.
I was going to say, for as confusing as some of this might get, at least this game doesn't have mistiming like Yu-Gi-Oh!
I remember that rule. That was stupid.
I still barely get it.
I understand
but it was pretty stupid. Just playing the video games, and sometimes the game would be like, hey, yeah, this effect mistiming. Like, what? I needed that.
It was like, if it says when it happens, but then you didn't get to do it, you missed the timing. But if it says if it happens, well, as long as it happened, you get to do it. I remember the logic, and it was still stupid.
Yeah, something like that.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a stupid game. Fight me.
Well, I haven't played since like Synchros, so I'm not offended.
Me on that.
I don't think anyone will.
Yeah, I don't think so either, because they all know it's true.
The people that play it still think it.
It's people that play it hate it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think did we cover all the after attack resolves stuff? I think there was one more that we should talk about, which was Davith, who has the fell swoop ability. After his attack resolves, become hidden, move to space, and perform another attack. So Davith is funny because he can fell swoop off of Dying Lunge. The reason for that is because they are both technically happening after the attack resolves. The reason, so that's the thing, is usually all the cards in Imperial Assault, they all do what they say. Like, the terminology is all consistent. Dying Lunge is weird because, and other effects that are like it says perform an attack, perform a melee attack, then you are defeated. So there is an implied from the then you are defeated that being defeated by Dying Lunge is an after the attack resolves ability. It would happen during after the attack resolves. So because you can order abilities with the same timing window as you wish, if they're both controlled by the same player, what the trick is with Davith is you play Dying Lunge with Davith, you attack, then you would spend your surge during step 5, and then after the attack resolves, you would be like, okay, I have 2 after my attack resolves abilities, one that's going to defeat Davith, and one that is going to let him move 2 spaces and perform an attack and become hidden. I'm going to use that one first, and then he can be defeated.
What? You're saying Dying Lunge is an after an attack resolves ability?
The part that defeats that figure. Right? Because if you
But
think
wouldn't
about
you
it,
have to activate Dying Lunge before the attack that kills Davith resolves?
it's not about the attack that kills Davith, it's about Davith's attack that he gets from Dying Lunge.
Oh, and then he can fell swoop before he gets defeated.
Yes, exactly.
Ah,
Because if you
okay.
think about it, Dying Lunge says you perform an attack, then you are defeated. So the implication is then you're
Mm,
then so it's after, so you perform the attack, and then once the attack
Yeah.
is finished, then you are defeated. Okay, well that's the same as after an attack resolves, right?
Right,
The
right,
attack
right,
has
right.
to
Okay,
resolve,
yeah.
and then you're okay. Well, that's after the attack resolves, so then we can order those. And I did get confirmation on that, like I think a year ago. So,
That's crazy, but yeah, that's cool.
and then we're done. You resolve all the things. Um, Counterattack. And then what is this? These are not with the trigger after attack resolves. They are not. They are happening only after performing the attack fully. Oh, and then you would have bleeding. You would suffer strain from bleeding after all that, which is interesting because it's after you resolve an action. All right. So to review very quickly, we have step 0, which is anything that happens before declaring the attack, like marksman. We have step 1, which is declaring the attack, which includes choosing the target, um, checking for line of sight, choosing your target, and then any on declare effects or any effects that add or remove dice from the dice pool. And then we have step 2, which is rolling dice, which includes any ability that changes what dice are in the dice pool, and includes anything that says before rolling dice. Um, and then step 3 is rerolls, so anything that says reroll a dice, attacker rerolls, defender rerolls, and always doing attacker first, defender abilities last. Anything that mentions being used during rerolls, like tough luck or Ezra's much to learn. Step 4 is apply modifiers, so any ability that says wall attacking or wall defending, or is an innate +1 block or +1 damage or +1 ability. Anything that adds symbols to the dice or removes symbols, so anything that's adding a damage, a surge, a block, an evade, or a dodge, or removing any of those symbols, or anything that's adding or removing accuracy, that says wall attacking or wall defending. That would be played during step 4. And then step 5 is you spend your surges. So once you have your surge results in the attack results, you get to choose which surge abilities you want to spend them on. Also, any effect that lets you spend surges from another figure, like General Soren or Gar Saxon, would happen during step 5. Step 6 is the check accuracy step. So if there's a dodge or if you don't have sufficient accuracy for a ranged attack, the attack will miss. And also this is when you exhaust Zillow to reduce the Pierce value. Same for heavy armor command card. And then finally, step 7, we check if the attack missed, you deal 0 damage in this step. This is also when you apply all the cumulative Pierce and you remove that many block results. And then you deal damage to the defender. Anything that triggers off of dealing damage will happen during step 7, so opportunistic, dying lunge, miracle worker, parting shot, etc. Also, anything that triggers off of a figure being defeated would happen in step 7, like heroic effort or celebration. And then finally, after the attack resolves abilities, so this is when you apply cleave, blast, any keyword conditions, so stun, bleed, focus, hidden, or weaken. Apparently, this is when you would recover damage from a surge ability. Jury's
So
out
it
on
does
that
also
one.
say that in the FFG version of the rulebook on their site.
On what?
On the FFG's rules reference guide that's up,
Yeah.
it says that about recover.
Oh, it
That
does
is
happen
after the
after the
attack.
attack resolves?
Yeah,
Alright, well, I'm an idiot.
yeah.
Alright, well, now we know. We've learned something new, or I have. I don't know. I'm sure you're all yelling at me. So yeah, this is when you would get recover from your surge abilities, so Ezra is not as immune to dying lunge as I thought he was. And then this is also when you would resolve things like return fire, flyby, hit and run, all that stuff happens after the attack resolves. Fell swoop from Davith. And then finally you would suffer strain from a bleed condition after all of that. And that's it.
Yeah.
Simple.
Simple. This is one of our longest episodes.
Oh, really?
We're over 2 hours.
Oh, shoot. Well, maybe we'll edit it down.
Or there's just that much happening during the attack step.
There is. I know, I thought about cutting out all the other segments for this one, and I thought, oh, it'll be fine. Alright, well, let's wrap it up there then.
All right. Well, I think it's a good episode. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Anything you want to plug before we go?
YouTube.com/The Second Flock.
Yeah, everybody check out his
I
live
do
streams.
game live streams. Gonna do some Star Wars stuff there, and gonna do some Imperial Assault, more Imperial Assault up there too.
Alright, thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.
Bye. Stay frosty.